In the far North Atlantic, where storms roll in without warning, one tower of stone rises higher than any sea stack in Britain. At 646 feet, it may not match the sheer height of Ball's Pyramid in the Pacific, the tallest sea stack on Earth. But many climbers say it's far more deadly. Sheer walls, crumbling rock, and seas so violent that survival begins before the climb does. This is Stac and Armin, Britain's impossible sea stack. Stac and Armin stands in the remote St Kilda archipelago, about 40 miles west of Scotland's outer Hebrides. Few places in Britain are more isolated. The nearest village has been abandoned for more than a century. The Atlantic here is raw, endless, and untamed. The cliffs of St Kilda are the highest in the British Isles, soaring more than 1,300 feet above the ocean. From these walls rise stacks, isolated pillars of basalt carved by storms and waves. Among them, Stac and Armin is the tallest. From a distance, it looks like a crooked tooth pushed out of the sea. From the water, it is a vertical fortress, narrow at the top, sheer on every side, hammered by waves that rebound and spray taller than a boat's mast. Stac and Armin is the product of fire and water. Millions of years ago, molten basalt poured across this part of the Atlantic, forming cliffs thousands of feet high. Over time, storms and waves tore them apart, isolating stacks at the ocean's edge. Most sea stacks collapse in centuries. That Stac and Armin still towers above the sea shows just how massive the forces were that first built it. The people of St Kilda lived on the edge of survival. With almost no farmland, they depended on seabirds for food, oil, and feathers. Each summer, men rowed out to the stacks to harvest gannets, puffins, and fulmars. To do it, they had to climb. Without ropes, without modern gear, they scrambled up slick walls barefoot, gripping cracks and tufts of grass. They balanced on narrow ledges hundreds of feet up, swinging nets to catch birds in flight. It was dangerous work, but it was tradition. And it fed the island. Boys were trained from childhood. They practiced balance by running along walls or were lowered over cliffs on ropes to build confidence. By the time they were men, they could stand calmly on a ledge the width of a hand, hundreds of feet above the sea. But accidents were common. Local records tell of men swept off ledges by sudden gusts or stranded overnight when fog rolled in. Families on Hirta or Borere watched helplessly as fathers and sons clung to cracks, praying the sea would calm enough for a boat to return. Among the St Kildans, climbing Stac and Armin was not a choice. It was life, and they climbed it more often than any outsider ever dared. By the 19th century, outsiders began to hear stories of the St Kildan's feats. Victorian adventurers came to see the stacks, sketch them, and marvel at the men who climbed them with nothing but nerve. The first recorded outsider attempt on Stac and Armin came in the mid-1800s. Guided by locals, visiting climbers tried to follow the birdmen's routes. They managed to gain height, but soon realized how exposed the stack was. Without the same balance and skill, they froze. A single slip meant a 600-foot fall into the sea. Most turned back before reaching the summit. Climbers who have tried Stac and Armin all say the same thing. The real battle begins before the first move. Boats must slip between swells that can flip them in seconds, smashing hulls against the cliff. Climbers scramble for slick ledges, dragging ropes and packs ashore before the next surge crashes in. One early party capsized just short of the base. Their boat flipped in the surf, gear scattering into the waves. The men clung to the overturned hull until another small boat pulled them out. They never set foot on the stack. Another group did manage to land and started up the wall. But only a few yards in, they realized every hold was slick. Their retreat was worse than the climb, waves pounding their boat as they shoved off. In the 1930s, a team climbed nearly a third of the way up. Morning was calm, but by noon, the sky blackened. Rain lashed the walls, and ropes snapped sideways in gusts. The climbers flattened against the rock until the storm eased, then crept back down, soaked and exhausted. Decades later, a stronger party pushed higher. For hours, they fought upward, tiny figures visible through binoculars on bore array. By afternoon, birds swarmed them. One climber slipped, saved only by his rope. They turned back, leaving ropes dangling in the cracks, a reminder of how close they had come and how far they still were. Even with modern equipment, Stac and Armin has a reputation for being terrifying. Those who have stood on the summit describe the routes as rotten and exposed, the rock unreliable, and the bird colonies relentless. Fewer than a handful of parties have reached the top. One story tells of a climber stranded overnight. He had made it halfway, but could go no higher. The boat below couldn't risk the surf to fetch him. He huddled on a ledge through rain and wind until morning, when the sea finally calmed enough for rescue. By then, he was half frozen, unable to speak. Those who do make it describe the summit as narrow and eerie. At just over 640 feet, the drop to the sea is sheer on every side. From the top, the ocean stretches in every direction. No harbors, no villages, only open Atlantic. There is barely room for a handful of people to stand. Climbers report being knocked to their knees, crawling instead of walking, afraid to trust the edge. From the summit, there is no relief. To the west, the next land is America. To the east, the cliffs of Hirta, long abandoned. To the north and south, more stacks like teeth in the water. Few climbers linger. What makes Stac and Armin truly dangerous is the world it rises from. The Atlantic here is funneled by thousands of miles of open water. Storms sweep in with hurricane-force winds. Winter waves climb higher than houses and strike with the force of explosions. The seabed around the Stac drops steeply. There are no reefs or sandbanks to break the swell. Boats rise and fall several feet in seconds, their anchors dragging helplessly. Fishermen steer clear of these waters, no matter the season. Tour boats point the Stac out from a distance, but guides warn passengers that the seas around it are no place to linger. The rock itself is fragile. Erosion carves new cracks every year. Large chunks have broken away in storms, leaving scars on the wall. Climbers cannot trust every hold. Protection pulls loose, ropes fray on sharp edges, and pitons tear free. The wildlife makes the climb even harsher. Tens of thousands of seabirds nest here, filling the air with cries and wings. Climbers describe it as a living storm. Gannets dive within inches of their helmets, ropes snag in nests, and ledges turn slick with guano. Fulmars defend their nests by spitting stomach oil that blinds on contact and burns the skin. On a wall this steep, even one strike can be fatal. And then there is the isolation. If something goes wrong, rescue is almost impossible. Helicopters are pushed back by crosswinds, their rotors battered by salt spray. Boats cannot hover at the base without being smashed against the cliff. Around the world, sea stacks have tested climbers, from Stac Lee and Stac Dona in the same archipelago to the Old Man of Hoy off Orkney, and even Ball's Pyramid in the Pacific, more than 1,800 feet high. Yet none carry the same reputation for danger as this one. While others see dozens of ascents, Stac and Armin can go decades without a single climber reaching the top. Among sea stacks, it remains one of the least touched summits on Earth. To the people of St Kilda, Stac and Armin was never a prize to be claimed. It was a hunting ground, a test of courage, and a reminder of the sea's power. Boys became men on its walls. Families were fed by the birds caught there. Today, it stands as both a natural monument and a climber's nightmare. Fewer people have reached its summit than stand on Everest in a single day. Those who try speak of it with awe and respect. Stac and Armin is Britain's tallest and most impossible sea stack. One day the waves will finish what they started, and the Stac will collapse into the Atlantic. Until then, it stands alone, a crooked tooth of basalt, defiant against the sea. Stac and Armin may stand alone, but there are more impossible climbs out there. Subscribe if you want me to take you to the next one.